Welcome back out to another one of our standout student interviews. Hollister Bedingfield taking some time to talk with us. And for you're a sophomore here at Salida High School, but your first year back, we'll talk more about that in a moment. But first, how's the sophomore year going?
It's really good. I'm having a lot of fun. It's good to be back.
Talk a little bit about your class schedule this year. What's it look like? What's a typical day look like for you?
So it's a pretty good mix of challenging classes that really push me as a person, and then also classes that are kind of just like my break in the day and have a little bit more time to be creative and hang out with friends.
You said you're already up into Spanish 3 in one of those classes. You were over in Spain for a year before this. Did the going over there help you kind of jump forward in that one? And how have you felt getting into that class this year?
It's extremely insane to see how much you learn when you're in an environment where all your one responsibility is to learn. It's kind of like just versus an hour a day versus 24 hours a day. You can't understand until you've experienced it yourself. Eating in Spanish and talking in Spanish and listening in Spanish and thinking in Spanish and dreaming in Spanish. You're just kind of your everyday. That's what it is. And then being back, it's so weird just to realize that I've had this advantage over other people. And it's like, wow, everyone needs to do this at some point.
I definitely agree with you on that. We'll talk more about Spain in a moment. But first, you said music is another class that you've been enjoying here at the school. And music is one of those subjects that you love throwing yourself into. What do you appreciate about that type of a subject?
It feels really free and open. It doesn't really feel like your classic, okay, we're going to sit down and for 30 minutes we're going to work on this and then we're going to do some free reading or whatever. It's really just okay, we're going to play music and then we're going to shift into one of our pieces that we've been working on and then we're going to talk about it and work on it. And just, it's not super scheduled, but it feels structured in a way that you don't get with other classes.
You talked about kind of not necessarily having the same structure, and when you talk about a foreign exchange trip, you took yours kind of out of the normal. Most of the time it's the junior year that you end up going. What was behind the decision to go to Spain? What were some of the things that made you choose there and made you choose to do a foreign exchange trip in general? Well,
it was actually my 8th grade year that we thought that we were going to try and get me and my brother out to Spain. So we had friends that lived there. It was the first semester of my sophomore year, is the year that I took, or the semester I took for exchange. And so I went there in August and I was staying with this family we knew, and it really wasn't working out. They were just not a good host family at all. So we ended up changing and I moved from Madrid to Valencia in early October, and that's where I was until December 16th, and now I'm back here for my second sophomore semester in Salida.
When you talk about that experience, what was the biggest thing you gained from it? What were some of the things that you really took away with you?
Independence. A lot of that just because you feel on your own, just away from everyone that you've known for your entire life. And also just a greater appreciation for just how other people live. It's weird because Europe is such a different place culturally than the U.S. It's also very different physically. We don't have these big wide open towns with mountains. It's everything is developed. There's not a lot of nature around yourself. You have to kind of go and find it.
You said that it was kind of different. It was very different when it went to the learning side of things as well. A lot more memorization, not necessarily as much focused on kind of the lecturing and discussion. What was that like trying to adapt to that? And now what's it been like coming back to Salida to adapt to another learning style?
My school was pretty lax on as far as what I had to do as a student just because of the language barrier. They were pretty accepting when I'd mess up. And I was in a learning environment where I was being super directed to memorize and stuff like that. Really, my only responsibility while I was in Spain and in school was to learn Spanish, and I did that pretty well. But for a lot of other people, especially my host sister, it's kind of weird because it's you don't have anything graded except for your tests. So it's okay, I have 3 days of this week where I don't have to do anything after school, and 2 days where she was just up till 2 a.m. sometimes just working on memorizing stuff for a test coming up and studying. It's really weird to see because as far as what I understand from what I see in this school, is there's not a lot of heavy studying and reading. It's a lot of just consumption of knowledge.
Definitely different ways of looking at things and different ways of seeing the world. What would you tell somebody else? And we'll wrap it up with this. What would you tell somebody else thinking about getting off into that and possibly experiencing something in a different country as far as how they do things and learn things?
Just make yourself do things outside of what you have to do. Make sure you go out with friends. Make sure you try and get the cultural experience that you're there to have. Don't just go to school, go home, and just hang out for your entire day, your entire weekend. You have to get out and you do things and have this experience that you're supposed to be having.
Definitely seems like you got the most out of your experience, Hollister, and we'll look forward to hearing what other experiences you have as you go through high school. But thanks so much for the time and good luck through the rest of your sophomore year.
Thank you so much for having me.